Hey guys, it's Jackie here from the Mom Panel on BT Dub's podcast. If you are here and if you are still with us and have tuned every week and subscribed to our podcast, I want to take the time to thank you while I try to get my son out of the food bowl, the dog food bowl. Yeah, no, sorry, buddy. Sorry. You know, it's a tough time. It's a tough time being a mama, but we're here. We join every week in spite of that. We are not hiding the fact that being a mama, being a parent, or being a caregiver is one of the hardest jobs, I would say, in the world. With such responsibility, but also such joy and so many happy moments that we can cherish from each day that we do it, right? So right now, as you hear my baby banging stuff in the background, let's talk a little bit more about why we've built this space called the Mom Panel. So before we step into season 2, I wanted to discuss that the Mom Panel didn't come out of a content strategy more than it came out of a need I felt as a mom, as a woman in her 40s, as someone who has both emptied the nest and is now starting all over again with a new baby on my hip. You know, I needed real conversations. I needed something beyond advice, beyond hacks. I needed connection, honesty, and insight, not just a monologue week after week, hearing myself over and over. And that's kind of what I told the ladies also when we first began this podcast. I wanted, perspectives from other women who were going through the same stuff I was or had been there already over the stuff that maybe I had already gone through. And so the Mom Panel was born. Okay, guys, so I was able to put my son in front of Miss Rachel for just one moment. And crazy enough, I was a nanny for 15 years and I never thought that I would be saying these words. In fact, no judgment to anyone who puts their baby in front of a screen, but I know better, right? I know what the research says about screen time, and it would have been my complete last resort before I did that. And here I am. Well, because some of us mommies don't have the help that other mamas have, right? If you have help, by the way, which I did with my first 2, what a blessing. I had my mother, my sister, my cousins, and, it was a whole community that raised my children. And today, I don't have any of that. I'm lucky if I get the babysitter once a week. And the hubby actually works all week, even Saturday and Sunday, believe it or not. So yeah, it is a tough time out here. So anyways, before Miss Rachel ends, let's continue the conversation. So basically 10 episodes later, I can say that this has become so much more than I have ever imagined would come out of it, right? It's not just a podcast for us. It's not just a table of moms chatting. It's a mirror. It's like a bridge, if you will, a lifeline to the world of 4 different moms from 4 different backgrounds and 4 different, very different experiences. So we're wrapping up season 1 with full hearts. And so before we launch into what's next, I wanted to get this time to tell you guys a little bit more about the voices behind the panel and why I chose these women to walk this journey with me. And gratefully, they chose me back. So let's start with Michelle. Michelle's a powerhouse, a career woman, a mother to tweens, a proud Brazilian. But if you tune in, you're going to see that Michelle actually is someone who you wouldn't even think that she was someone who came from somewhere other than California. She's such a Cali girl. And, she reminds me of my Cali friends because I'm originally also from California. And when we met, it was very, very obvious that it was going to be a really, really wonderful dynamic between her and I. Let me close the door real quick because I think I hear Miss Rachel a little bit too loudly. Okay. And so anyways, meeting Michelle was, to say the least, chemistry. So she became a mom in her late 30s, and that is the more common thing right now. So I loved that because she and I are, she became a parent in her late 30s and early 40s, and I recently became a parent again for the second time in my 40s. So this is the more common thing nowadays, according to what stats are saying. And that is why Michelle and I will probably be the voice to the more mature mom, the moms over 35, the moms that have a lot more life experience in general, not mom and parenting experience, but just life experience in general before becoming a mom. And she, brings a sharp insight, emotional honesty, a grounded voice to the panel, and she knows what it means to show up. And not that any of us are not the show up kind, but what I mean is, you'll see in one of the episodes, it's so funny. She comes in her scrubs. I mean, talk about showing up, talk about accountability. In fact, Michelle has to pull strings in order to make this podcast happen. So I very much respect her highly. And even when it's hard, and even when it's messy, you're going to see Michelle episode after episode, which I truly respect. All right, next up is Miss Jill Lerman. And she is younger. She started off younger than Michelle and I. She is a younger mom in her 30s, and she is right now in the trenches and the thick of the early years, raising her, I think, 4-year-old, if I'm not mistaken. And it's so sweet and so endearing because she brings a fresh new perspective to the panel in ways that I didn't have when I first started to be a mom 26 odd years ago. And being a nanny is not being a mom, so I get to learn how the newer moms feel and about certain subjects, about certain topics. And she might be up your alley if you're that mother that just had a baby and is also in her 30s and it's all brand new. She has a background in play therapy, which adds so much depth to our conversations about bonding and behavior. Jill is very soft-spoken, but she's bold. She's reflective, but raw in many ways, and in good ways. And she brings the lens of someone who is building their motherhood identity, like right now, like maybe you at home, moment by moment. So that's what gives this panel a perspective of a suburban mom. She has a background in school setting, so it's really just a wonderful time to delve into topics of play and imagination and creativity and all of that with Miss Jill. Let's continue. We have Miss Taisha. Taisha became a mom as a teen, and today she's an empty nester with a grown child, and she talks about really, really hard topics. I want to say that Taisha brings a reflective part onto the podcast and onto the panel when we're really struggling with our words, when we're really struggling to get it all out. Taisha comes in with heart, with wisdom, and she's walked the road of raising children with trauma and complexity, if you will. She's seen what works, what hurts, but also what heals. She comes from a strong Southern African American background, and I loved that because we with the mom panel are reaching all east, west, north, and south. And Taisha brings truth, leadership, wisdom, and just a whole bunch of laughter to this space. When she speaks, you listen, and you also feel seen. And that's what I love about Miss Taisha. And then there's me. I'm your host, Jackie, a Latina mom. I, had my first child also in my teens, not as young as Taisha, but still, teenage mom. And now in my 40s, I'm raising another baby, and all the life I've lived in between is something I'm able to speak upon on the podcast, as a Latina, as a person that has gone through a lot of life challenges myself, being a single parent. I also emptied the nest. I've built businesses. I've experienced deep trauma, deep healing, and deep joy. So through all of it, I've learned that parenting doesn't end at bedtime. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lives in our identity, our relationships, our bodies, our stories, our history, our families, right? I wanted to talk about all that life brings, create a space for mamas, where mamas feel seen, heard, where the mom panel is also relatable. As we prepare for season 2, the mom panel goes deeper. We're bringing in guests. We're going to open up our home and our Instagram space where we'll share behind the scene moments. Do not wait. Go to _mom_panel on Instagram, and you will see personally our stories, our communities, our conversations that go beyond the mic. In this next season, it's not going to be just about us. It's going to be about you, our audience. So whether you're a future parent, a brand new mom, a tired toddler wrangler, or a grown woman still healing from your own childhood, which, again, topics up my alley, we want you to feel seen here, to hear a voice that sounds like yours, a voice that challenges you, teaches you, or simply reminds you you're not alone. So here's what's next. Follow us on Instagram. Jump into the DMs or email. Tell us your story. Tell us what you want to hear in season 2. And if you're someone with a powerful parenting story, message us. We're opening up the panel to future guests, more voices, and more realness. Because the mom panel isn't about being perfect moms. I think Miss Taisha of our panel likes to put it, we're perfectly imperfect. And it's also about being real, right? Real women, real men, real parents. And in real time, I would say, in the thick of it, together. So for now, follow us on all platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we will see you very soon in season 2. Thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing to grow with us on this mom panel journey. Bye for now.